Hey, what's up, investors and serial entrepreneurs? This is Erik Stark coming to you with a real quick case study on a deal that me and my business partner Steve Mills flipped this past week. I apologize for the demo mode. I did not have my MacBook next to me, but I really wanted to get this case study in your hands because there's a couple of really valuable tips in here you could learn from. I'm going to keep this one really short. We're no longer going to do the 45-minute case studies, so I'm going to try to keep these things as close to 10 to 15 minutes as I possibly can. So without further ado, I'd like to jump right in on how you can do a double up wholesale and how to flip a property from 30,000 on Monday to 60,000 on Wednesday. Let's get it. All right, so this particular property here, we received the lead from a direct mail source, and anybody that's ever had a private personal conversation know that marketing has really become the lifeblood and my passion of our real estate business. I live for marketing and negotiation. I'm like the rodeo guy at the event who loves to get on the horse and you swing open the gates and you run out and you lasso the cow and you run out and you tie it up and you throw your hands up, and that's me in a real estate transaction. So I love the chase, the pursuit. That's what I'm after. But we found this property from a direct mail campaign through a probate follow-up. I know there's a lot of people out there that are coming to me saying, what are you guys doing? What we're doing isn't working. And all I can do is tell them to stay persistent and consistent. Those people who continue to mail without fail in their direct mail business are the ones who are going to reap the fruit over and over again. Let me give you a disclaimer. In today's market, when the prices are up, the inventory's down, everybody's feeling the pinch, because at this point, when a seller has a property, especially an in-demand property, they don't have to fight to get noticed anymore. They can simply put their ad on Craigslist, put a FSBO sign in the front yard, and buyers are going to start ringing off the hook. Matter of fact, more than just buyers. Agents, investors, bird dogs, everybody across the board is going after every lead because the limited inventory is putting everybody in a situation where they have to get a little bit more aggressive on these deals. So stay consistent, stay persistent in your direct mail. Recently, we had somebody who came to us and wanted us to refine their direct mail process, and I simply told them no. It's reasons like this right here. Had I charged somebody $5,000 to go into their office and redo their whole direct mail process for their probates, I likely would have lost out on this deal. So if you have to ask me what our knowledge is worth and what we've figured out and systematized in the probate realm, I could easily tell you it's worth $30,000 plus because of this transaction right here. So how we took how we took and qualified the lead. Again, if you've ever had a conversation with me, especially in today's market, when it's a little bit more prestigious and less time on market, I choose to take all of my calls live. Now, we're not getting hundreds of leads like we used to back in the foreclosure days. So, the 20, 30, 50 leads that we're getting a week consistently, I have no issues taking those leads, answering the call live, determining how motivated somebody is, and building rapport from that point on. So when the call came in, I took it live. I spoke to the seller. I could sense that there was some real motivation for her to sell this property. I spent about 45 minutes on that first initial phone call with her, and we built something. Actually, we had something in common, so we built a little bit better friendship. And I was able to willingly do that once I knew that I had a motivated seller on the phone that was more than just curious about what they had received in the mail. Turns out that this seller had lived about 9 hours away from the property in the tip of northern Michigan, where she was about 52 miles away from any sort of civilization. And there was no faxing or emailing her a purchase agreement. So we had to do this long form, longhand, and the old school snail mail route. So we wrote up the offer, mailed it out to her. She mailed it back to her attorney, who's down near the area, and we began to get the process rolling in our direction at that point. We're able to determine the value by just pulling some simple comps of what is selling in the immediate neighborhood. Now, this was a very, I don't want to say exclusive, but it was a very unique and rare property because, one, it backed up to a 500-acre nature preserve that is never allowed to be built on and is just one of the most absolute beautiful places in Michigan that people flock to enjoy their weekends and time with their family. And this property happened to back up to it. On another note, directly to the left, and then there's probably about 12 homes on the street that back in 2003 to 2005 were built new construction. So picture having an estate size area. All of the lots, including the one that we have, are built on a 1 acre parcel. You have our 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,600 square foot ranch sitting right in the middle, and then the house to the left is $450,000 and about 3,500 square feet mixed with other, $250,000 homes that were just towering over this property. So we always look at the expandability feature that a property may have. Since this area isn't truly calling for it at this point, Steve and I had talked about keeping it as a rental. Will it serve this purpose in the future where the land becomes worth more than the property itself? Sure. But at this point, we just wanted to turn this one to a good buyer and realize our profit quickly. We got the offer accepted basically just by spending the time on the phone with the seller that day. We knew that it was going to be kind of moving in our direction. We made it as simple as possible for her so she didn't have to, show the property. We were able to line everything up, and she had to be involved at a very minimal level because, again, she's an elderly lady who lives 9 hours away from the property, can't spend all of her time, running down here just to give us a key and let us in. So we kind of coordinated everything just to keep it simple for her. No hassle whatsoever about, finagling. I sent her an offer. She came back with one counter, and then we were able to get inside the property to take a look. We gave her the exact number she wanted. She knew she was getting a set amount at the closing table. We paid all of her closing costs, told her we were buying it as is. We were flexible on the time that she wanted to close, which was very, very crucial to her. And I'll tell you that right now, actually. She trains sled dogs for a living. Those crazy guys that travel up in Alaska and go 1,000 miles a year with 5 or 6 sled dogs attached to them, and then they run from Alaska to St. Paul, Minnesota. That's known as the Iditarod. She is a trainer for a group of dogs that participate in those races, and her deadline was actually coming this week in order to make sure that she had all her dogs lined up and registered and the check. I mean, it's very, very crucial. It's like your child stepping into a competition. There's very strict requirements, and if she didn't meet those, she wasn't able to participate. So it was very, very crucial to her that we were able to meet those demands. Most importantly, the reason why we got this deal accepted is because we were able to build rapport with the seller and share some laughs, and here's why. A few years ago, I was one of those crazy people who decided to look into it and begin training for this crazy dog sled race, not really knowing exactly what I was getting into, but I wanted to go on one of the adventures to find out what it was all about. So being that I was one of those people that went on a dog sled adventure, I was able to relate to her on many different things more than just the property. And as a matter of fact, we only talked about that property for about 10, 12 minutes. And then the rest of that 45-minute conversation was about her and her experiences in life and the people that she had knew and where she lives at in God's country in northern Michigan and the dog sleds and how much the dogs mean to her and all these other things beside the property that allowed her to say, well, wow, I like this guy. I like his character. I can relate to him. I feel good about this. And oh yeah, by the way, we called about a house. Well, let's get back to the house. So we were able to just kind of roll that off with ease, give the seller exactly what she wanted, and bring this one to fruition. So we got the deal locked up. Everything's moved over in escrow. Clean title comes back. And, if you guys have ever had a conversation with my business partner and I, that we typically race on every property. And that race consists of me wholesaling it or him getting a scope of work ready so we can either take the property on as rental property or buy it and flip it for full retail. And for this one, I didn't need to fight and fend too hard to realize that, hey, if we can double our money in less than 48 hours, I don't know how much more of an upswing you can get turning it into a retail property. And here's my thinking behind that. This property that you're looking at in front of you today, if you're able to buy this property for $30,000 and sell it for $60,000, you've already captured $30,000 of that equity. Now, if you want to close on this property and retail it, get it insured, handle the maintenance, do all the management of contractors, start the utilities, raise private money for your rehab financing, whatever you need to do, you can factor on that being a 90 to 120 day time frame, even for a simple $15,000 rehab. I've seen it over and over again. Simple carpet and paint turns into this, and it turns into this, and it turns into this. You get it on the market, it turns into this, it turns into this, it turns into this. You can either take $30,000 right now, or you can fight for the next 4 months to potentially make another 10 or 15, maybe even in a good scenario, $20,000. So let's boil down that 4-month scenario with a $15,000 additional payday. I don't see the value in fighting, because in the time that a typical rehabber can rehab a house, I can wholesale 3 properties in that time frame. And all deals aren't going to come across like this, where you have these big, bulky, juicy paydays. But anytime you ever add up 3 wholesale deals to your 1 profit of your rehab, 3 nickels will always be worth more than a dime in my book. So that's kind of my philosophy around why I choose to wholesale, unless there is just an outrageous spread on the back end. So selling this property was very simple. I made 1 phone call to somebody. This is a realtor in our area who, him and his dad, buy multiple properties a year from us. He's a very, very good realtor. He's never really represented us, but I've kept him on our radar because he's professional, he knows his values, and he knows a good opportunity when he sees it. So I put in a phone call to this buyer, had him go walk around the property. We locked this thing up. I told my business partner, listen, we got this thing sold. Let's call it a wrap. He really wanted to rehab it, but I repeatedly showed him the value of what we were doing. Quick 48-hour turnaround time. We double closed the property. We definitely could have assigned it, but I just figured to keep the seller and buyer and everybody at ease, let's just double close this thing. We used our own funds. We paid all the costs for our seller. Our buyer paid all the closing costs for us. So we truly had 2 net to seller closings, and it was a win-win for everybody. Show me the money. Everybody wants to see the proof in the pudding here. So the check that you are seeing on the bottom shows the payoff because we self-funded the property. So we bought it for $30,000, had to pay transfer tax, title insurance, deed recording, and then prorations for the taxes. We ended up having to bring 32 and some change to closing. Sold the property 48 hours later. We received our payoff of $32,000 and some change, and then our cash proceeds to the seller of $28,937. So we literally just made just under, by about $1,000, what would have been called a true double up, and in my book, that's a double up. So what I learned on this transaction is that a well-versed life makes for very unique rapport building conversation. And what I mean by that, as entrepreneurs and investors, we tend to lock ourselves in our business, always working through and working to greater possibilities in our business. That weekend, I just happened to take off, spur of the moment, to head up north and go do this Iditarod training session. And if I would not have done that, I would have never been able to have a conversation with this seller and relate to her about what she does in her life. So when you do live that sort of unique life, if you want to call it, where you're able to go out and do the things that not everybody does, it just opens up your possibilities of what you can relate to. Now, I know sports is a big thing you can relate to business people about. I don't watch sports whatsoever. If I do, they're motocross and snowmobiling, and not everybody participates, but there have been times when I've had great conversations with people who carry a great conversation about power sports. Definitely been something that's been in my favor. So make sure you're doing those things in life where you're opening up your possibilities of being able to build rapport with them. I definitely will accredit this deal going down to my ability to relate to this woman when it comes to those sled dogs. When somebody puts a big check in your hand, shut your hand. This is a comment that I frequently hear from one of my good friends in the industry, Mike Cantu, a gentleman who's flipped over 1,200 houses in his 30-year career. I have no issues taking a big payday like that, especially when you're able to put very little time, energy, and effort into bringing deals like this to fruition. We certainly could have relisted the property and absolutely sold it for more. I believe we earned greater value, greater trust with our buyer for delivering such a great value to him on his end. I mean, truthfully, we could have closed on this property and with very little cleanup, probably sold it for 80 to 90,000. We just simply handed it off to our buyer, who was more than ecstatic to take the deal at our number, even though he knew what we were making. And he's able to go out in the streets and either keep it as a rental or do a flip himself. And ultimately, what it's going to do is make him turn around and beat a better path to our door for the next opportunity. So, very good insight on what this deal, what brought it to fruition. If you guys have any questions, I absolutely look forward to the feedback, the exchange. If there's something I forgot to cover, if you have deeper questions, whatever the case may be, leave your comments below. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Bigger Pockets, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on ActiveRain, I'm on Real Estate Mogul. Find me on all these social media sites because I'm truly giving away all this content for free every day. And the more you can be around, the more I can help you grow your business. So from Erik Stark, Steve Mills, thank you very much for spending the time with us. I hope you got some valuable information. We'll see you on the flip side.